Hi everyone, I welcome you all at Apti Plus IAS. In these particular sessions, we take editorial analysis of Hindu and Indian Express newspapers. In these articles, we don't just discuss the issue, but rather we take a comprehensive in-depth analysis of background. We understand the present issue and we also take way forward. And every article that we discuss here, it is organized in the format of context, main body, and way forward, the format in which you need to write answers in the examination. So let's get started. Now, the first article that we are discussing here in this particular capacity will be this article that was published in the Hindu newspaper, and the article reads intercaste. Now, this particular article, it specifically caters to GS paper 1 society GS paper 1 society, and within GS paper number 1 society, caste and related issues. We are going to discuss this particular article. So basically what has happened recently, there were many caste conflicts that were observed, particularly in state of Tamil Nadu. Often it has been seen that the caste divides are found in education, they are found in the villages, even in schools there are the caste lines that have been observed. Students of upper caste are often not preferring to sit with the students of the lower or the marginalized caste. Now what has happened? So, right. So basically what has happened in this particular capacity? What has happened in this particular capacity? Fine. Justice K. Chandru Committee was formed. Justice K. Chandru Committee was formed, and Justice K. Chandru Committee has given certain recommendations, certain suggestions that how caste consciousness in students can be reduced. Now, first of all, Justice K. Chandru Committee has recommended that there should be a clear ban, there should be a clear prohibition on any symbols that might indicate the caste identity of a student. For example, many number of times the students, they are wearing the colored wristbands. Now often certain colored colors, they are attached with a particular caste. So colored wristbands should not be allowed. Some particular type of rings, forehead marks such as tilaks, they should not be allowed. Why? Because often they give indication about one's religion and one's caste. Also, it has been provided that any caste insignia, any caste expression, any caste name, any caste related picture, sticker should not be allowed on bicycles. Also, it has been provided that when the students' names are concerned, their names should not depict any kind of a casteist undertone. Okay, this is something that they have suggested, and it is suggested that it will help to reduce the caste consciousness in students. Now understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the caste consciousness, it happens to be one big it happens to be it happens to be one thing which has divided the society. Then historically we have seen that earlier also certain precedents have been taken. For example, what has happened? Caste names have been removed from public utilities. Okay, from textbooks caste names have been reduced, but actually it has frankly not helped that much. Why? Because value inculcation is something which needs to be helped. Now, first, what we need when we talk about the way forward, that what exactly is to be done. Number one, there is urgent need of educational reforms. First of all, at the level of teachers. So it has been provided that there should be a dedicated body by the name of Social Justice Monitoring Committee. Social Justice Monitoring Committee. Now, this Social Justice Monitoring Committee will ensure that there is the inclusion of social justice, equality, and non-discrimination related content in school curriculum. So there is this particular technique of catch them young. What is this catch them young methodology? It is provided that if any sociological change, if any mental change, if any psychological change is to be brought in the children, then that particular change should be executed at a young age, because in young age neuroplasticity in children is such that they can learn, they can adapt to anything. Later words, they might not be able to adapt. So therefore, social justice, equality, non-discrimination should be included in school curriculum as early as possible. And here social justice monitoring committee will oversee this particular thing. Then it has been provided that the teacher education program such as B.Ed, diploma in elementary education, fine, they are also needed to be updated. Often it has been observed that the teachers are the ones who are giving the social validation to caste. Often teachers are the one which are discriminating children on the caste line. So the teachers, they are also needed to be, they are basically the curriculums which they are reading, it also needed to be updated so that the teachers, they themselves promote inclusivity. Then next thing that comes here is that centralized kitchens are being proposed. So kitchens should not be segregated. Fine. So that has been provided. Then after that, the next thing that comes here is that social justice student force is being suggested. Now this particular student force will promote the values of inclusivity, will promote the values of fraternity, inclusivity, etc. But this particular thing has been criticized. It has been said that, you see, when we talk about the NCC, National Cadet Corps are there, Scouts are there, then there are the school level guides that are there. Now they also focus on the values such as inclusivity, social justice. So if NCC has not been able to bring this kind of a value change, okay, then how this particular new force, new student body will be able to bring? So rather than creating new body for everything, existing institutions that are there, they are needed to be strengthened. Fine, that is about it. Okay, then after that, finally, what is needed? We need to bring a broader societal level change also. If the politicians, if parents, they will impart good values, okay, then these kind of instances of caste discrimination can get reduced. So we need to bring a societal transformation at village level, at the political level. There need to be political resolve also that the caste based politics should not be used as a tool to divide society. Often what is happening now, see, it is said that one should cast their vote in elections. But rather than this, what is happening? People are often voting their caste. People are not casting their vote, they are voting their caste in elections. So why they are doing it? Because the politicians are often leveraging the caste identity in elections. So politicians need to be more responsible. Fine. Moving on, then we have this next article, gender parity. Now this particular article, it mentions about the recently released global gender gap report, which was released by the World Economic Forum. Now what happened in this global gender gap report? Though progress has happened when compared to the previous year, that is 2023, but speed of progress is not satisfactory. According to global gender gap report released by World Economic Forum, it has been provided that actually it will take 134 years. It will take 134 years to achieve full parity, to achieve gender parity. Now, what are the places where we find that the gender parity is not there? There are multiple places. For example, gender parity is missing in employment. Gender parity, for example, when you talk about the female labor force participation rate, it has been less compared to the male. Okay, then we have the gender wage gaps are there. Women are being paid less just because they are women. So gender wage gaps are there. Female labor force participation rate is less. There are the pink collar jobs that exist. Certain type of jobs are believed to be the women oriented jobs. Certain type of jobs are believed to be masculine jobs, and their women are not preferred. So we find that the gender parity is not there, and it will take 134 years. According to this global gender gap, it has been said that we will be able to achieve gender parity by which year? By 2154, by 2154. But SDG goal that we have taken in 2015, Sustainable Developmental Goals, which have 17 goals and 169 targets, SDG goal took a timeline of 2030. SDGs took a timeline of 2030, but they will be able to achieve the gender. But as per the present progress, gender parity will be achieved by 2154. Now, when we talk about India's rank in the matters of the gender parity, gender equality, what is India's rank? India's rank is 129 out of 146, which is not good. And when we talk about India's performance, so India's gender gap closure is 64.1%. Now, when we talk about the global gender gap when we talk about the global gender gap closure, so on global level, gender gap closure that has happened, it has reached to 68.5%. So we have closed 68.5% of gender gap. But in India, the gender gap closure is just 64.1%. 64.1%. Now, when we talk about India, what are concerns that we have at the level of India? What are the concerns that we have? First of all, why India's progress is now not going with that particular fast pace? So, in economic participation, there is progress. So, there is improvement in economic participation. Female labor force participation rate is improving. Okay, recently what happened, BCCI also provided this particular thing, that the same remuneration should be given to the men and women cricketers. Okay, also we find this particular economic participation progress is good, but we find that the condition has worsened in education and politics. Okay, for example, when we talk about the recently conducted elections, we find that in the recently conducted elections, 74 women MPs have got elected. Now in 2019 elections that happened, 78 women got elected. 78 women got elected, and now it has reduced to 74 women. So on this particular front, we find that on political front, women empowerment is not moving forward. One thing. Also, if you see what happened, we came out with the Women's Reservation Bill 2023. It got passed also. But Women Reservation Bill, it has not become, though it has become an act, but it has not come in implementation. Why it has not come in implementation? Two conditions are there. It was provided that 33% seats will be reserved for women, number one, after 2026 delimitation is done, and number two, after census, which is pending, is done. So it has been made contingent on these two conditions, that is census and 2026 delimitation. So actually, it has not come in place. So what are the way forward? Number one, you see that decline has happened because of the educational attainment has reduced. So we need to ensure that girls who are dropping out of the higher education, they should not drop out. We need to identify reasons that why women are dropping out of higher education. Particularly when we talk about the STEM courses, that is the science, technology, engineering and mathematics, there women enrollment is very much less. Though in humanities, women enrollment is good, but in STEM courses, women enrollment is less. So we need to ensure that we prevent the dropouts from the higher education. We need to identify the factors which are hindering their participation. Job skills are to be provided in the higher education so that the women become more employable. Workplace safety is to be provided. Often women, they are not confident to travel to their workplace in the odd hours because of the physical and sexual harassment that they might face. Fine. Work-life balance post marriage. Fine. Women should be supported so that they are able to manage the work and life. Okay, so basically dignity of labor should be brought in India. Employers should be careful to ensure that they are not to ensure that they are giving congenial condition to all the workers, not only women, to all the workers. Political inclusion. So Women Reservation Act that has already been passed, it should be implemented. And World Economic Forum Managing Director Sadia Zahedi, what Sadia Zahedi has provided. It has been provided that the businesses and civil societies should be allowed businesses and civil societies should collaborate to make gender parity an economic priority. Because until and unless corporates, until and unless civil societies, until and unless the business groups will make this as a priority, change will not come on economic front. So this is something that is to be done here. Now, moving on to the next article, elderly people in India. Now, this article will see with respect to GS paper number 2, social justice and related issues. GS paper number 2, social justice and related issues. We are going to take it up now. Guys, understand this thing, that within social justice, vulnerable section of society, elderly happens to be one important component. And when you are writing anything with respect to the elderly population, even question on elderly has come in the GS paper number 2. So when you are writing anything on this particular aspect, you need to have adequate data. Also, writing data will not only help, you need to have certain references of the data sources as well. So recently what happened, Help Age India, which happens to be a non-governmental organization, they have carried a detailed survey with respect to the condition of old age people in India. It has given detailed data with respect to their economic vulnerability, with respect to their social vulnerability, with respect to their physical vulnerability, and ensure that you note down this particular data in your notes. So, Help Age India survey, it was conducted across 10 states and 20 cities. Now, what are the data points of this particular survey? What are the data points of this particular survey? Number one, this particular survey provides that only 15%, only 15% of the elderly people who were surveyed, they had a source of income. They had a source of income. Now, if elderly people will not have a viable source of income, their ability to invest in geriatric care will be limited. Now, what is geriatric care? Geriatric care, geriatric care. Okay. So geriatric care is a special type of health care that is provided to the old age people. So now geriatric care, it will become unaffordable to the people if they will not have the viable source of income. Then next, there is also gender disparity that we find in terms of accessibility of income. 24% of elderly men, they have income stream, but when we talk about women, only 7% of the women, only 7% of the women have income stream. So in terms of women, only 7% women have income stream. However, in terms of men, 24% men have income stream. Then next, 29% of elderly people, they are financially supported by their children. Now, they are financially supported by their children, but because of this particular dependency that they have on their children, there many vulnerabilities also arise. Let's understand this particular thing. Now, when we talk about, guys, data of National Crime Record Bureau, NCRB data, it provides that there is there is a domestic violence cases against elderly people have increased. Domestic violence cases against elderly people have increased. Why? Because of this particular dependency that they have on children. The children, they knew this particular thing, that they cannot go anywhere, even they cannot report this particular matter, because at the end of the day they are dependent on their children. Then next thing that comes here is that a huge proportion, 1 in the 3, around 33%, they report that they didn't had any income in past 1 year. Accessibility of social security schemes, old age pension scheme, etc., it is available to only 29% people. So social security is not available to majority of them. So this is the economic vulnerability. This is something economic vulnerability that we have discussed. The next we have is the healthcare challenges. Healthcare challenges. So 79% of the elderly, 79% of the elderly, they rely on government hospitals for healthcare. But often we find the government hospitals, they don't have adequate capacity to cater to the people. Recently, there was one article that one child, he needed a surgery, heart surgery. 6 years have happened. 6 years back, he needed health surgery. Now 6 years has happened. The child has not got the surgery, and this was the case of AIIMS Delhi. So capacity in government hospitals is so less, but 79% are dependent on government hospital. Just 31% have health insurance, and they can approach the private hospital. Fine, these ones who are not, the ones who are not having health insurance, they cannot even approach the private health facilities because they become unaffordable. Then geriatric care facilities are known to only 15%. Fine, 15% people know that there is something geriatric health care kind of a thing. Okay. Also, it has been provided that health issues are prevalent. 54% are having 2 or more non-communicable diseases. 26% having at least one non-communicable diseases. Now, no need to go too much in detail that, okay, how many percentage are having diabetes, how many percentage are having cardiovascular diseases. Now, what is way forward? What is way forward in this particular capacity? So, way forward is that, number one, we need to ensure the financial security. We need to ensure financial security of all the old age people. Understand this particular thing, that the social security scheme, pension pension plans, okay, PF, social security should be reoriented for the old age people, should be reoriented for the old age people so that they have adequate incomes in the old age. Then next, we need to come out with the dedicated income generated program for the old people. Fine. Now understand this thing that once a person, let's say, is retired, we think once a person is retired, we think that now the person is not willing to work. But no, often people want to work in order to get a purpose in life. Often people still want to work so that they can productively be engaged in some kind of a intellectual pursuits. Sometimes people want to work because they want to get dependent on their children. Sometimes people want to work for the sake of financial independence. But we don't have dedicated platforms which can provide the job for old age retired people. We need to focus on that. The next thing that is needed to be focused is we need to expand the health insurances to more and more elderly people. You see, only 31% people are having health insurance. So ensure that the penetration of health insurance increases to more and more people. Then availability and awareness of geriatric facilities need to be enhanced. Now, when we talk about the geriatric care, there are the problem of 3A that is there in this particular capacity. First A is these geriatric cares are not affordable. See, are not first A is that they are not available. First A is that they are not available. Majority of hospitals, where you find them? You find them in tier 1, tier 2 cities, metropolitan cities. But where majority of old people live, they live in villages. In fact, 41% people will live in urban India by 2030 as per Niti Aayog. Majority of India is still living in rural areas, but hospitals are in urban areas. So number one, they are not available. If they are available, let's say some old person living in metropolitan city, often they are not affordable. They are available, but often they are not affordable. They are very costly. Suppose availability is there, affordability is also there. Often they are not accessible. Old age people, because of the knowledge gap that is there, because of the mobility restrictions that they have, they are often not able to approach. So therefore, geriatric facilities are need to be enhanced. They needed to be, old people need to be made aware about them. Then caregivers are needed to be supported. Now see, many number of times the children who take care of their parents, they don't have adequate information about the special needs of, special psychological needs, special social needs, special physical needs of the old age people as they age. So we need to establish support networks. We need to establish organizations that can provide social psychological support to both caregivers as well as old age people. Caregivers as well as old age people. The next thing is there. We need to formulate state specific. We need to formulate state specific policies which will address the demand of the elderly people. Fine. So that is all, guys, about it. Fine. Now moving on to next. Okay. So here we have this article, high cost of a global economic decoupling. High cost of a global economic decoupling. Now this article we are going to see with respect to GS paper number 2, international affairs. International affairs. Okay. So first of all, guys, let me tell you something about the background. So there is this particular word that is decoupling. What this particular word decoupling means. So decoupling and de-risking was a strategic policy that was devised by US when they found that they are significantly dependent on China for their critical inputs. Fine. Now, for example, guys, for lot of electrical equipments, for lot of chemicals, for active pharmaceutical ingredients that are the backbone of the drugs, there is a lot of dependence on China. There is a lot of dependence of China. And there is a possibility that the China can weaponize this particular dependence. China might stop supply to US. China might stop supply to US. And as US's industries are dependent on China, what might happen? They will face a kind of an economic crisis. So there's a threat of trade weaponization by China. So therefore, countries don't want to depend too much on China, and they are now decoupling. Means they are detaching from China and they are now getting attached with the other countries. They are expanding. They are diversifying their supply chains. They are diversifying their supply chains. This is something that is being done. Now, what happened recently? One more development has happened in this particular line of decoupling. So recently, US, they had imposed restrictions on certain category of Chinese imports. So basically, certain restrictions have been imposed. Certain restrictions have been imposed on the Chinese imports. Why? Because they want to reduce the economic interdependence on China. They want to reduce the economic interdependence on China. Now, now, you see this particular thing, that this particular development is driven out of the concern of national security and trade imbalances. Fine. Now, also geopolitical rivalries are increasing. Now, you see this particular thing, that, for example, there are a lot of IT equipments that are being imported by China, and there is a threat that these Chinese IT equipments might compromise their national security. China might carry the surveillance through their basically through the equipments that they are supplying. Also, trade imbalances. Now, as a dependency is there on the China, trade deficit also has increased between the US and China, which leads to economic repercussions on the part of US. And then the geopolitical rivalries. Now, you see this particular thing, that Russia-Ukraine war is going on. And as this Russia-Ukraine war is going on, Russia has teamed with China. And Russia and China, now they are actually becoming a counter force for the US and the Western allied nations. So China, as it is supporting Russia, so a kind of a sense of rivalry also has come between the US and China. Moreover, what US wants to do? US wants to revitalize their own domestic industries. See, till the time dependence is there, till the time dependence is there on China, US's domestic industries will not invest in their own capabilities. So this is something that the US is also trying to build upon. Then what has happened? Also, US has targeted which type of sectors? They have specifically targeted electric vehicles, medical devices. Now, in short term or in immediate term, it will also have impact on US. It will have impact on US. What it will do? It will raise the production cost. It will increase the consumer prices in the US. Now, as the cheap Chinese made electrical equipments are being imported, as medical devices were being EVs were being imported from China, as medical devices were being imported from China, now as they will not come, what will happen? US need to develop these components at their own, and in short term the cost of production will go up. Also, this particular shift will prompt the other nations also to secure their supply chain. Now, you see, as US is doing it, Europe will also follow the same kind of a thing. And in Europe also, these particular input prices will go up. Fine. This is something that might happen. Okay. Now, what is way forward? What is suggestion in this particular direction? Number one, there should be balanced trade policies. There should be the balanced trade policies. Now, you see this particular thing. Let's see, countries have all the right that they should look in their national interest. They have all the right that they should be careful about their strategic interest. But at the same time, globalization that has been enhancing in the last few years, that globalization's principle also needs to be respected. Okay. Reinforcement of global trade mechanism. Now understand this thing, that WTO like bodies need to be empowered so that they can address such kind of disputes if they are arising. And finally, countries need to go for economic diversification. So rather than being dependent on one country, for example China, they should going for the supply chain diversification. Now when we talk about China, guys, an alternative to China, uh, a- a- um, could be India. Fine. So basically diversification in such kind of a countries need to be done. Fine. I hope, guys, this is clear to everyone. Now moving on to the next article. Okay. Blueprint beyond borders for solace and shelter. Okay. Refugee, asylum and protectionism. So, guys, recently 20th of June was observed as World Refugee Day. Now, few things I would like to tell you with respect to the refugee and their related issues. And this particular article we are going to see with respect to the GS paper number 2, refugee issues, GS paper number 4, ethics, human right related issues. We are going to see this particular article. So let's get started. Let's get started. Okay. Now, guys, first of all, when we talk about refugee, we have 1951 Refugee Convention. There is 1951 Refugee Convention, which happens to be the most comprehensive document outlining rights of refugees. It talks about the safe and orderly management of refugees, um, uh, refugees' rights, etc., have been recognized. Then there is one additional protocol, that is the 1967 Protocol of Refugee Convention. There is 1967 Protocol of Refugee Convention that we have. Then this is one. This is one. Secondly, there is United Nation High Commissioner for Refugee. There is United Nation High Commissioner for Refugee. Now, this UNHCR, it is the dedicated body, or it is a dedicated this is a dedicated institution responsible for protecting the refugee rights. Now, when we talk about India, first of all, understand this particular thing, that India has not signed this 1951 Refugee Convention. Okay. Also, India has not signed this 1967 Refugee Convention's additional protocol. Thirdly, India also has not come out with its own refugee policy. India has also not come out with its own refugee policy. Fine. These are certain things that need to be kept in mind. Now, when we talk about India, guys, India in the past has offered support, has offered uh, refuge to the migrants coming from the countries such as Tibet. So, in 1958-59, a lot of Tibetan refugees came to India. India has provided them the asylum. Then a large number of people have come from Bangladesh. Now, if you guys know, there is you see this thing, there is Assam Accords of 1985. There are Assam Accord of 1985. Now, what is this Assam Accord of 1985? Now, Assam Accord of 1985 recognizes that the refugees that have come from Bangladesh till 1971, they will be given the citizenship of India. Sorry, yes, refugees came between 1966 to 71. They will be given the citizenship. Fine. Okay, this is something that has been provided. So, India has treated refugees with the compassion and empathy in the past. There are refugees that have come from Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Nepal. They have been accommodated, though India has not signed 1951 Refugee Convention. But again, because we don't have formal legal framework for refugees, often there is incoherence that comes in the refugee management in India. There is an incoherence that comes in the refugee management in India. So our asylum laws often become inconsistent, and sometimes they become inadequate. Sometimes they become inadequate. Now, what happened in past? Private member bill have been introduced. For example, Shashi Tharoor, an MP, introduced a private member bill which provided for establishing a comprehensive refugee and asylum law in India. Now, this comprehensive refugee law or asylum law, what it will provide? It will outline, this comprehensive refugee law will outline that what are the conditions on which India will give asylum to any person, on what will be the rights of the refugees, all such kind of things were to be provided. Fine. But this particular bill, being a private member bill, did not got passed. Also, this particular bill emphasized on the principle of non-refoulement. Principle of non-refoulement. Now, what is this principle of non-refoulement? Principle of non-refoulement provides that a country should not deport back any refugee, any immigrant to that country. Suppose Rohingyas, let's say, have come from Myanmar to India. Now, let's say Rohingyas coming to India, they might have a threat to their life if they go back. So, India should not send back them to their home because there is a threat to their life in their home territory. This is principle of non-refoulement. So, principle of non-refoulement restricts a country from sending back the refugee to their home country if they face a threat in their home country. Fine. Now, principle of non-refoulement, etc., rights of the refugee people, all were mentioned in this particular bill, but this particular bill did not got passed. Now, what is the current handling of refugees? So currently, I told you we don't have any coherent policy with respect to the refugee management. Fine, whether the asylum will be given or not given, if given, what type of rights will be recognized, all such kind of things are decided on case by case basis. Now, some refugees coming from some selected countries, if they are being registered with the Indian government, they get documentation such as Aadhaar card. They often also get economic opportunities. But refugees who have been registered with United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees but not registered with the government, they don't receive any type of benefit. And therefore, it has been said that treatment becomes not discriminatory towards these people. Becomes discriminatory towards these particular people. So therefore, what is way forward in this particular capacity? What are the suggestions in this particular capacity? So suggestions that we have in this direction is that number one, we need to come out with a dedicated law. We need to come out with a dedicated law. We need to come out with a national asylum law, which will define the rights of refugee people, which also impose the conditionalities on government also. Then there is the need of judiciary and policy consistency. No, judiciary often has recognized the fundamental rights of refugee people, has talked about certain non-negotiable rights for refugee people, but they have not been given. Fine. Also, we need to recognize the basic access of public service, education, employment by refugee people. And then there should be international cooperation. Fine. We need to cooperate. Basically, we need to align our national refugee policy with the international laws. Fine, as enshrined in the as enshrined into the Refugee Convention of 1951. Okay.